every week we sit down with a creator, we sit down with a comic book creator, writer, artist, and we just sort of talk about what they've got going on, how you can find it, what you're interested in. Gabrielle, if we're good to go, if we're live, we'll get things running. Hello, comic watchers. We're here live at Comicpalooza 2021. Super excited to be here. Our normal host, Matt Meyer, couldn't make it. He's in Oklahoma. He should be here for all rights, but he just couldn't make it. But thank y'all so much for joining. I'm super excited to have everybody here. Thank y'all so much. And I'm joined with Chris Hayes and McLean McGuire, who have got CCP Comics and Charter Comics. I want to talk a little bit about what y'all have going on and also that relationship between CCP and Charter Comics and where y'all are at in the indie market right now.
Well, that's a lot of questions at once. We'll start with the kind of the background. CCP Comics has been an organization for over 16 years, helping writers, artists, letters, inkers, the whole thing, giving them the right tools, knowledge, and experience to work in this industry, to do what everybody is doing in here, as well as, possibly get them focused and processed into the system of the bigger companies and things like that. And so about 3 years ago, Chris and I met and we started talking and working on some books together. And basically from there, just kind of realized that both organizations are operating at the same level, out for the same thing, to help people, help artists, help writers, and help basically bring the creations of ideas that, Chris has here that he writes and develops with his comic books, as well as anybody else that's working on comic books, or any kind of story really, and help you process it and get it out there without any kind of hiccups or anything like that. And so we basically have, in a sense, merged the two companies together. And, we got CCP Comics, that gives everybody the right tools, knowledge, and experience to do what we're doing, as well as process the publication of books and those that are working on it, as well as Charter Comics. We have a great abundance of titles that work under that program. Like we're producing over 8 titles now under that particular company, and so we use all the same artists, we use all of the same methods, and basically how we've built to be a part of this industry. So that's all that in a nutshell on my end of it, but Chris here, he's worked on, he's written over now 8 or 9 titles. 10.
We're at 10.
So
yeah, no, I think McLean summed it all up exactly what both companies mean, especially to the indie world. So you look at a company like Image, right? I mean, so all the guys at Image, they started when they were smaller. They all had big names. People knew who they were. But we kind of looked at our company and we're like, well, why can't we do something like that? Because we have a list full of creators, a list full of artists that not a lot of people know about. And we want to get their names out there, and that's what we want them to do. We want them to succeed. So that's why McLean started CCP Comics, and then with Charter Comics, it's actually pretty much our publishing company that we use that to publish the books with. So right now it's more into the thriller horror genre. One thing exciting is we have artists and creators and writers actually coming to us, asking us how they can get in the industry. What do they need to do to be successful? It's a long road. We'll tell you that. It's not an easy road when people want to create a story or write a book. There's a lot of work. There's a lot of effort that goes into it, and there's a lot of failure. Yeah, so you have to have that good mindset that you don't mind failing. And we see it a lot right now that a lot of people, they don't have some of that mindset where they may put out a book and they get disgruntled that it's not selling, and then they're done. But they could have been the next Donny Cates, let's say. It was just something that we're starting to see.
And to add to what he was saying about Image, is Image Comics, they have a lot of side publishing companies that they run and operate, like Shadowline and people like that. And so that's kind of the same developing here with CCP Comics and Charter Comics. I mean, both organizations are producing comic books for whatever means it is, so we're just trying to help those artists, writers, creators, whoever it is, get in the system and, not only produce our own books and work on our own books and manage those books, but also people that come along, like you said, and give them the tools, knowledge, and experience to do this, to either publish their books, help them publish their books, or let them be successful on their own, so.
Well, and what you said there was exactly right. And we've had a couple people come up to the booth today, actually looking at writing their own books, and they're like, well, I need to get a letterer. I need to get, I'm not sure. All of a sudden I'm hearing about paneling. I don't even understand what that is. I'm hearing about, okay, I need a colorist to do this. And this is some advice that we can give. And they're like, okay, well, what do we pay you for that? We're like, nothing. We're not in, we don't take anybody's money. We don't believe, it's just something we don't believe in. For when I met McLean 3 years ago, we were at a con. I was putting on just a smaller little day show at a little civic center, and I met him. He came in and set up, and I was telling him I was going to create my own comic. And he said, okay, let's do it, because I'm a letterer, I'm a graphic designer, I've got the ins and outs. I didn't know first step about creating a book, and he helped me through that. So then from that process, we kind of, when I say exploded with our books, and now we have people coming to us going, okay, asking us advice on exactly what do I need to do to get into the industry. That's the way we look at it. We're all about people supporting people. So if you follow us on Facebook, we got a plethora of friends or people that follow us. We're always supporting. We've got friends of ours that are doing other Comic Cons right now in other parts of the state or out. We promote those guys just like they promote us. It's all about everybody helping everybody. Because the way we look at it, if you're not helping each other and supporting other creators, then the industry could fail. We don't want to see that happen.
That's absolutely right. I mean, we use the line with a lot of creators and artists. We use the line like, hey, this is our round table over here. Pull up a chair. I mean, we don't care who you are, what you're doing. If you're looking for that knowledge and you want that experience, man, pull up your chair. We have plenty of seats at our table.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
Yes. I love that. I love that type of insight. And that's sort of what we like to bring because, I mean, how many people knew when the new comics coming out from CCP Comics and Charter City Comics? That's what we want to do at Comic Watch is help shine a light on these types of stories being told. And when we got here, and I knew we didn't have anybody lined out for this interview, for this panel, but I knew I wanted to do a live stream episode. And we were looking around at creators. Gabrielle said, hey, there's this awesome publisher that got some really cool books out. We should go chat them up. So about an hour later, I'm $100 deep into comics, and I'm like, we've got to talk to y'all. So we went and got some lunch. We went and got up on the second floor, and I was able to read The Forgotten Isle, which is kind of what helped kick off their publishing initiative, and also The Detour, which is actually just out today, and you probably can't find anywhere else. If you're at Comicpalooza, you've got to stop and pick up The Detour. These are some awesome books, and they lean heavily into the horror genre, and that's something that if you followed any of my writing or anything I'm into, that is right what I'm interested in. And these books were a natural fit. They have that indie feel, but they're polished and they're really well executed and they're worth checking out. So I wanted to see if maybe I can kind of talk a little bit about The Detour. That's y'all's latest book that just dropped. Kind of give us the pitch and what that book's all about and what people can expect from it.
Question for you real quick. You said you were $100 deep into comics. They weren't at our table.
Uh-oh. Maybe a few more, right? There's some covers in there, right?
There is. So The Detour, well, that launched today. It had a successful Kickstarter. The actual physical copy is here at the show. We launched it today. If you're into a 80s thriller, horror, slasher, it's a 2-issue book. It's about a couple that are going to take a trip to go down and see the woman's parents. They see a sign on the road. It's like freshly picked fruit. And they take that turn, and they're going to go up to take a dirt road. It's going to go down a ways. They're going to pull up on a nice fruit stand run by a teenage girl. Unbeknownst to them, what's going to happen next is there's a house back there, and bad things are going to start happening. So they actually run into a cannibalistic family, and that's kind of the end of issue 1. And then issue 2 is where the 80s slasher comes in. It's kind of cheesy, a little fun because think of 80s horror. So when you're thinking of 80s horror, it's a little cheesy sometimes. So that's how we created it. We kind of got a idea for that. I was driving down the road one day, going from Hazel, Texas to another little town called Boyd, Texas, down this dirt road. And out of nowhere, being honest, there's this big sign. It says freshly picked fruit. And I just kind of looked at it and I was like, boy, somebody's going to get killed down that road. That is not a good sign. And it just popped in my head, the idea that I just pulled over. I called McLean and said, I have a story. And he's like, what is it? And I just started lining it out. And then I went home that night and started writing it. It took a few weeks. We got the book written. And then about 2 months later, we did a successful Kickstarter and it launched today. So we're pretty happy about that. There's been quite a few of them sold over at the booth right now. There's 3 covers. My son actually did a cover for us. Kid Salinas did a cover. He's in the booth right across from us. And then DJ Hall's another cover artist as well. With the 4th cover was Ryan Palmer did a cover for us. So we're pretty happy with that.
Yeah,
that one's taken off today.
Yeah,
with not a lot of publicity here at the show.
Right. Yeah, and it's a stellar comic. And there's something I want to touch into and kind of bring McLean more into this because I'm a huge fan of Vault Comics, and there's a little bit of ties to Vault Comics. I know in y'all's history, and if you're not aware of Vault, they've done stories like The Plot, they've done The Blue Flame, they've done a lot of cool things, but something they've done in some of the I think it's the Wassel brothers who kind of helped launch everything, right? They're designers. They're not really necessarily writers themselves or artists themselves, but they create awesome logos and they create and package their comics in a design that immediately makes you want to go to them. And that's what's pulled me into both of y'all's booths, really, is that sort of design and the overall layout and presentation of the books. And I know, McLean, you kind of got some experience in that a lot and kind of what you're putting to the table. Can you kind of talk a little bit about sort of the design and presentation of these books and what you've put into them?
Well, I think what you and I talked about was basically logos and appearances. Like, don't get me wrong, you can put a lot of graphic design work into logos and make something amazing. But I mean, look around us. I mean, look above us at the CP Comicpalooza logo. It's super simple, super easy. You know what it's about. You know what's going on with it. That's the same road we sort of take with the logos that we put on our books. And the Vault Comics thing, we were talking about that because I said, man, you look at the Vault Comics, and Vault Comics is 2 different companies. They actually started on movie business type stuff, building TV shows, writers that work for TV shows and stuff like that. And I believe it was the son, I could be wrong, but the son branched off. He's a comic book guy and started doing all comic book stuff. So the dad, basically invested into the son. So Vault has been a great company, but when you look at their logos on their books, they're very simple, very clean. I mean, I've talked to those guys before and talked to their design team about things like this, and it's the same aspect that I have, is that it doesn't really need to be crazy acting. It's just something super simple. You want the reader to look at it and go, okay, this is what I want. We were looking at the Defectives book. It's such a simple text. The Detour, a fairly good text with a little bit of splash of color on it. Just match that up. I mean, and I don't know about you guys, but building horror books alone, when you do like simple logos as it is, it makes it more frightening for the cover than just something dramatic. Dramatic, you know what you're going into. Simple, you're kind of like, I'm not quite sure. It's the metaphor of logos in a sense,
Right.
But I'm super creative on the side of super simple when it comes to logo designs, because I want you to be able to read it without any kind of crazy design or crazy font or whatever you're using, and that's just my perspective on the matter of things. But I mean, look around you at this building. I can already see about 5 different logos around us, and every one of them are simple. They're different, but they're simple. And I think that's what is needed more, so it attracts people to the book. And then you open the book, and the book is just crazy or it's superhero or whatever.
Right.
So
Yeah, I mean, when I was walking up to the table, there's a book called The Ferryman. And I saw that book from across the aisle from 2 booths back. I was like, that's the book I got to go check out, because it's simple, because you can read it, and because it almost gives you insight into the story just from the logo, just from the cover presentation. And I know there's a lot of phrases and a lot of the uses of don't judge a book by its cover. That means something different in comics, because there's a lot of work that goes into the cover. And I think that's something that's really significant. And so when I see a presentation like with what CCP and Charter Comics is doing, you can already see that sort of intellectual approach to the comics presentation and to get you hooked on that story. And Don't Pay the Ferryman, I was able to check out the first issue. So good. I have to recommend it. It's a stellar comic. If you're into any type of horror, it's worth checking out for sure. And honestly, I kind of, as we bring this stuff to a close and sort of help celebrate CCP and Charter Comics, I want to see if y'all could talk lastly about where we can find y'all, what's coming up next, and sort of what fans can look forward to from the future of y'all.
Well, so when you read the Detour, and I'll let Chris take a few of these things too, is when you read the Detour, and then Detour 2, which will come out in a few months, when you read those books, I just want to remind you guys, like, that's not it. Like, there's so much more to come. I mean, that story alone, it might end in issue 2, but we have a 3-parter that's coming up, and then we have a couple other stories that's coming up that Chris has created and written that are in developing right now, and it's going to pave the road for that universe that we're building, and so there's a lot more that's going to happen. I encourage you to go pick up the Don't Pay the Ferryman or the Forgotten Isle, stuff like that, because those are selling so fast. I mean, last year alone, we sold out of Don't Pay the Ferryman a few times, right? It went into second printing, and so this show's been great to us. By the way, thanks to Comicpalooza and all the promoters and everything that having us out. We've done so well on those books, so we encourage you to come over to the table and pick up the books, because we're selling them so fast, because everybody that missed the opportunity of the Kickstarter on both issues last year are showing up here going, oh my God, I missed out on this. This hit big. That was the highest profitable and most consumed quantity of fan-based book that we released in the industry. And that was the third book that we released under Charter Comics. And so I encourage you to come check it out. Detour is another one. I mean, it showed up for this show, but it hasn't even hit the shelves yet. But yeah, we have a flood of people that are contacting us saying, hey, we got to get our hands on this book. What are we doing? Where's it at? And things like that. So there is a long line of story that's coming with that Detour and coming with Don't Pay the Ferryman, and I'll let Chris talk a little bit about what's more to come on that end.
Yeah, mainly, like you said, our universe is exactly what it says, it's a universe. So with the Don't Pay the Ferryman series, I just finished writing a book called Ferryman Origins. That is actually in process of being drawn, and that'll be out in the next 3 months. I think that one's going to be very big, and that starts our Ferryman universe. So if you come by the booth, you'll kind of see our Ferryman stories. It's a character nobody's really done anything with, so we jumped on it 2 years ago and took it and ran with it. From there, like you said, we've got another book coming out called Beyond the Shadows that's almost done being drawn. We've been keeping that one quiet. It's just a one-shot book, more of a psycho thriller that's going to happen in that one. I am pretty excited about that one. You read it, you kind of get some of the chills on you. It's not a slasher book, but more of the what-if type. We're excited about that one. And then, like McLean said, with those two, we're rolling right into a 3-issue book called Until It Sleeps after the Detour. And that kind of rolls a lot of our universe together. So on all the books I write, there's Easter eggs from other books. So you may have something from Forgotten Isle or from Don't Pay the Ferryman. Something from Forgotten Isle may show up in there, whether it's just a picture or just an Easter egg. And a lot of the readers catch that stuff. So I like putting that into the books. And it just kind of rolls our whole Charter Comics together. So everything I do will have Easter eggs based on other books. It could be a character or something, just to see if people pick up on it.
So awesome. I mean, really, if that doesn't get you hyped up for these comics, I don't know what will. These are books that you need to check out. And it's so exciting to see sort of this level of comics happen, especially right here at Comicpalooza in Houston, because these are high quality, well executed comics that you really won't find anywhere else. And these are books that stand out on the shelf and they make you want to read them. And honestly, Chris McLean, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Super happy. Thank y'all. I really appreciate it. And stop by the booth. Go check them out. They're right here on, I believe, 2200. Yeah, 2200. Go check out Charter Comics. The website is chartercomics.com so that you're able to find their work. Pick up these issues. Check out the universe that's just about to get started, because some exciting things are coming for sure. Thank y'all so much for coming. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. All right, Comic Watchers, that's it. Thank you so much for joining us at Comicpalooza Live. We really appreciate y'all coming out and hanging out with us and talking about some cool comics. That's the end of our live show episode. You can kill it now, Gabriel. Thank you so much.